Greenhouse Data is headquartered in Cheyenne, Wyoming. We're a VMware cloud-powered service provider. We have facilities in Cheyenne, Portland, Oregon, Piscataway, New Jersey, and most recently Orangeburg, New York. We're wind-powered, highly efficient, and we're proud to be a B Corp. And we're HIPAA and SSAE 16 Type 2 compliant, as well as some other compliancy measures. And we offer 24/7 live customer support. Our presenter today is Sean Mills, who is the president of Greenhouse Data. And Sean is a technology entrepreneur who speaks very regularly at industry events and conferences, and he has a lot of experience with acquisition and growth. So this should be a really interesting webinar. With that, Sean, I'm just going to turn it over to you. So go ahead and get started.
Great. Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate the introduction. So thank you, everyone, for joining. We're excited to have the webinar today to talk about mergers and acquisitions. You know, it's interesting. We have seen a massive uptick in the number of customers that we have that are either looking to acquire companies or are in the process themselves of being acquired. And so one of the things that we wanted to share with everyone today was some of our experience in that process and dealing with companies that both have been through it themselves before and then that are looking to continue their growth pace through acquisition. And so over the last 12 months, you know, the war chest of cash that's been growing in the enterprise and in corporate America has really started to open. The Dow Jones Industrials over the last year has increased by about 16%, and what really that means is companies are looking to continue to grow and trying to continue to grow at a faster pace than they potentially could do themselves on an organic growth basis. And so many companies are now considering looking at acquisitions, looking to spend the money that they have amassed, and they're looking to spend that money through acquisitions. So as you can see on this slide, the deal activity has increased exponentially. 84% from a report from Deloitte, 84% of corporate respondents to this survey was that M&A activity is going to increase or maintain at its current pace over the next 24 months. And many of the private equity firms are seeing the same reality happen in their world. They're seeing that putting money to work through acquisition is going to be a key component to their continued growth. And so on the next slide, for those of us that are in IT, the challenge that we face is real, and many of us already know that M&A and technology comes with the territory. You know, software companies are hyper scaling. They're looking to grow and they're looking to exit, both exit into the public market and exit into another private company or being acquired by another company. And so many of us in the IT space have already faced this reality of M&A. But what we're all aware of is that obviously there's a downside to that reality. You know, job redundancies happen, positions get eliminated, the new company thinks that their staff may be better than the acquired company staff. So obviously there are some downsides and ultimately could end up in layoffs. But you know, there is good news on the other side of this equation. IT personnel really, at the end of the day, can uniquely position themselves in this in the face of the chaos. You know, embracing this reality for an IT person in an organization will really benefit you in the long term in your career. And so, you know, one of the themes that we look at and we often talk about in our company is in chaos comes opportunity. And so let's chat a little bit about what that opportunity looks like and perhaps how we can take advantage of the potential chaos that can benefit us. And so on the next slide, as we talked about, you know, at Greenhouse Data, we've witnessed this firsthand. We've witnessed this in a couple of different ways. You know, we have, as Wendy alluded to, we started off headquartered in Cheyenne, Wyoming. We have since grown to 3 other locations outside of Cheyenne, And in that process, we've acquired a couple of companies to help us continue to grow. And as the president of our company, the thing that stands out for me when we are interviewing and talking to IT workers in the acquisition process is how motivated are they? What are they focused on? Are they focused on the things that really add value at the end of the day? And so, from our perspective, we've witnessed this, and we'll share some of the things we've witnessed, but we also, as I mentioned, have had a lot of customers come to us in a merger or acquisition scenario and did quite a few what-if analysis. So what if we did X, Y, Z? What if we brought this company on and migrated to the cloud? How would this other technology that you guys offer potentially save us money? How could that drive additional revenue? And so that's really what we wanted to talk about for the next few minutes is kind of diving into some of the technologies, some of the different opportunities that as an IT person, you have the ability to really continue to add value, either as the company that is acquiring other companies or as the company that's being acquired. And so, the risk is on both sides for everybody. The status quo doesn't remain status quo for long. And executives, the CFO, the CEO, the CIO are all looking at the opportunities to reinvent themselves and continue to provide and add value to their company. So on the next slide, we stick with the theme of in chaos comes opportunity. And the reality is, IT infrastructure is a strategic asset to corporations. Enterprises of all sizes, their IT infrastructure can give them the competitive advantage they need to continue to succeed, continue to grow, and continue to beat their competition. It's a competitive environment out there in almost all industries, and so how to operate more lean in a more efficient fashion is critical. And so we'll talk a little bit about infrastructure planning as a strategic positioning opportunity. We also wanted to talk a little bit about creating leadership opportunities through high visibility projects. In any change in an organization, being visible as an employee in the organization is critical. And so we'll talk a little bit about how you can find yourselves and position yourself for leadership opportunities in these projects that are going to occur during a merger or an acquisition. And then finally, it's critical to stay ahead of budgets, especially in the time of change. Understanding what the goals of the organization could be, or understanding what the goals of the organization ultimately will be, is going to be critical. And so we'll dive a little bit more into that. And so wanted to kind of start with infrastructure as a strategic opportunity. One of the things that we ultimately recommend and that we've seen in our own process through mergers and acquisitions, and as an employee looking to thrive through a merger or an acquisition, taking a look at where do you sit in the food chain of your organization. Understanding, is that where you ultimately want to be in the food chain of that organization? And if the answer to that is no, you ultimately want to continue to grow in this organization, this opportunity, this chaos that occurs through a merger or an acquisition is really your opportunity to shine. Because at the end of the day, IT folks are the cornerstone to many organizations, and operating the critical assets of the company, the assets that ultimately drive value and ultimately drive revenue, puts you squarely in a perfect position to continue to create value for your organization. So if you haven't been through an acquisition before, it's start time to doing research on what that means to an IT organization like yours. How large is your IT organization? What are the critical components to success in your IT organization? Listen intently to either your CEO or your CIO on what are the drivers behind success of your organization. How do you find, what are the key metrics that the CIO or the CEO looks at when evaluating IT, and really take that into consideration as you're doing your research. So look into your organization and pick the top 5 ways you think that IT adds value, and start doing the analysis across the board, from your infrastructure to your backup strategies to your DR strategies to software. what systems would likely be redundant? How might your environment change in the event of a merger or an acquisition? And so start to consider many of those things. And some of you might be thinking, how am I supposed to know that? And the thing that we really wanted to share is some of our experience dealing with our customers in this process. And what they do is they have leveraged us as experts in various technologies and various deployment methodologies to help understand, all right, well, what would be the impact if we did a DR strategy with you? What would be the impact if we migrated everything to the cloud? What would be the impact if we moved into colo? How would the cost implications change for us? And really leveraging the service providers out in the market space can allow you to learn a lot of information that can ultimately become exceptionally valuable for your organization or for the new combined organization that puts you in a position of leadership. And so on the next slide, we kind of focus on the different stages that your company might be in. So where are you from an infrastructure perspective? Are you in a large data center application across multiple geos with hundreds of thousands of square feet that is being merged with another organization of like size, and ultimately you recognize that there are critical redundancies there? So in the event that you are that data center, or you're working for a company that has that data center, in our opinion, it's time to get really focused on three things: flexibility, efficiency, and reliability. So when you're in a large data center organization, flexibility is going to be critical through this time of a merger or an acquisition. So understanding what are the redundancies, how can you become more nimble, how could the new combined organization become more nimble? Do you look at co-location to solve some of the migration challenges that might exist, some of the opportunities that might exist for your company to consolidate some of the existing infrastructure to then ultimately drive the efficiencies that the CFO, the CEOs, and the shareholders are really looking for in an acquisition? Efficiency. How much energy is being used across all of your organization? Has your organization already taken the opportunity prior to an acquisition to become as lean and mean as possible? If the answer to that is no, in this change is the opportunity to really create a lot of value. And don't be surprised, the person on the other side of the table might have a lot of value to add, or they might not have any value to add. But in this change, the opportunity to learn and to provide that flexibility to your senior leadership is going to be critical. The flexibility and the efficiency. And lastly, from a reliability perspective in your data center, maybe your organization wasn't large enough to fully develop a DR strategy. How reliable is your IT infrastructure in the event of a catastrophic failure, or for that matter, in the event of a non-catastrophic failure, all the way down to if you had a SAN failure, what levels of redundancy and reliability were built into your systems at a data center level? And from a reliability perspective, that can go all the way down to internet carriers. Are there opportunities there to increase reliability for your data center, your co-location facility, that you previously, as a single entity, didn't have the luxury of being able to afford? Then if you take a look at the server closet company level, so the 1, 2, 3 rack company that might not already be in a co-location facility, those type of companies are really looking for some of the same things. They're looking for flexibility, but they're also potentially now looking at robust nature of your IT infrastructure. So as an IT engineer, how can you add a more robust solution? Could you consider the cloud to enhance that robustness of your applications and of your application delivery? Do you need to have additional geolocations for your IT infrastructure so that you can serve your customers better? Delivering a robust solution both to your customers and potentially the customers that are internal, your other employees. How can you continue to drive value for your IT infrastructure and for your IT investment that can really benefit either the acquiring company or being the acquirer or looking to continue to move up in the value chain of it within an M&A acquisition. And lastly, it's really important to stay focused on being nimble. Inside an acquisition, it's really important that when a company is being acquired, that you're able to move and execute quickly on a dime. Oftentimes, in a merger or an acquisition scenario, the company that is acquiring another company has to implement in a very quick time frame in order for the payoff of the acquisition to occur. So being focused on how can you continue to make your IT organization nimble, how can you personally add value that can execute more quickly. Those are some of the critical components to consider whether you have a large data center or whether you're living and operating out of a server closet. But again, focus on asking the right questions. Leverage all of your vendors through this process to understand where costs might be able to save, what are the cost impacts, how can you provide additional robustness to your organization, potentially by looking at a backup service provider, disaster recovery as a service, or cloud hosting as a service, or even for that matter, increasing your reliability through moving to a co-location facility so that you can ensure that during these changes there are no gotchas in power or cooling or security, that a lot of changes happening, and potentially being into a co-location facility might be that first move. So there's a lot of things to consider when you're a data center operator or operating out of a data center, or even down at the server closet level. And so for some organizations, on the next slide, you've already made that leap. You've already made the leap into the cloud. And so what does that mean for the organization? Are you being acquired by a company that has not made that leap? Are you looking to acquire a company that is still operating out of a server closet, but really looking at potentially moving that entire infrastructure to the cloud? And that's really the question that has come up in our organization from our customers the most. We're looking to acquire XYZ company. They have 400 servers. We have no idea what is on those 400 servers. Can we park them in your cloud for 3 months to figure out what we do next? And so then we really work with our clients to help them understand, all right, well, what does the migration look like? And probe questions back, and then ultimately provide solutions for them to help them through that process. Sometimes they choose that solution, and sometimes they don't. But in that process, the team that we work with learns a ton of information about the options and the opportunities that are out there. And so, some of the things to think about: if you are already in the cloud and you're being acquired, is your cloud optimized? Have you metriced your cloud? So what I mean by that is, oftentimes there are these things that we refer to as cloud zombies. So you've had sprawl. Perhaps you went to the cloud 3 years ago and have deployed infrastructure as a service, but you did it in a fashion, or your company did it in a fashion where you'd spin up servers, you'd forget about them, they'd stay, and they'd continue to be built. So there's a real opportunity to go in and reanalyze the cloud deployments that you've already gone through, and take the opportunity to show how you can add value by either reducing the cloud footprint or learning more about how you can continue to be nimble for the acquiring organization or to the company you're looking to acquire. How can you leverage the cloud to your benefit through a migration? Is it a parking spot for 3 months, 6 months, while you sort out how to move to colo, or what investments you need to make? We find ourselves talking to clients all the time where literally the servers have been running for 3 years and nobody knows what's on it. Nobody knows what it still does. And they take the opportunity to move it to the cloud and do a test. What happens if we turn it off? What happens if we leave it off? Does anybody even notice? And so there's really the opportunity in this change to create continued value as an IT staff member. And so on the next slide, the opportunities realistically to save money are everywhere. How does your software perform? Do you have too many software applications? Are there dead applications that are no longer used anywhere throughout the enterprise? So the opportunity for the IT member during an acquisition is really large. You know, at the end of the day, look at the budget that you spend on IT and understand the impact that that's going to have on the new combined entity. Is your network architecture robust? Is it designed to meet the needs of the growing organization? What are your backup strategies? Have you figured out your disaster recovery strategy? How might the disaster recovery strategy look in the new entity? All of these things are places that the IT staff drives value in the enterprise and in the organization. It's critical that you look everywhere. It's critical that you continue to seek throughout all of the things you do, from the virtual environment to the physical environment to the data center level, the infrastructure. Have you optimized yourselves to be prepared to take on another company? And as the IT professional, this is where you have the opportunity to shine. And so on the next slide, all of these things we've just talked about don't matter unless you put yourself in a position to be a leader in the organization through high visibility projects. Because what's going to happen through a merger and acquisition, usually the CFO says, we need to cut 40% costs, we just doubled in size, there's redundancies, how are we going to find them? Volunteer for these high profile positions so that you can be seen as a leader in the new combined entity. This is the opportunity. If you're not satisfied where you are in your current position in the IT organization, this is certainly the place that you can shine. Have you been through a consolidation effort before? Speak up and explain how you can help solve the consolidation effort through an M&A opportunity. What migration experiences have you had migrating from the cloud to colo or developing a hybrid IT environment? Have you worked through this with service providers before to help lower the cost for your operating organization? These are all of the critical projects that you have the ability to really affect change in your organization. And really optimizing your applications, as we discussed, there are going to be several high visibility, high priority projects that you will ultimately have the opportunity to participate in that can solidify your position as an expert and a leader in the IT organization. The projects around resiliency, has the DR project been actually implemented? How much duplicate DR capabilities are now embedded in the new organization? What apps are running throughout your organization? Is there app overload? Many of these projects can help you continue to excel in your IT organization. And on the next slide, you know, really at the end of the day, the CFO is your friend. If you recognize that through this process, there are drivers that really help an organization become successful and continue to grow, many of them are wrapped around budgets and value. So don't just think everything is cost cutting. There is the opportunity in a high visibility project to show value that, hey, this app, this service that we deliver on the East Coast or on the West Coast will continue to allow our salespeople to sell more. You know, so it's not a cut everywhere. It's an opportunity to show value and value creation for your shareholders, value creation for your company. And so, you know, budgets are important. You know, continue to stay ahead of the budget discussion by leveraging everybody you can to help understand what if analysis of what happens if X, what happens if Y. And the critical component here is to be quantitative in your discussion with the CFO or with your senior executives, not qualitative. So an example would be our backup solution will give our company greater insurance. Well, that's neat, makes everybody feel comfortable, but it is not quantitative. If we increase our backup solution or if we decrease our RPOs or RTOs, this is going to create a X% less chance that we will lose this application that drives 10% of our revenue. our uptime will be much better if we had 6 new servers. Much better is not a quantitative discussion with the CFO. If we add 6 new servers, our uptime will increase by 45%, which will drive our costs down, or our response time, or our customer service metric up by 45%. Those are the metrics that the CFO is really looking for, and that can really help you shine in the event of a merger and acquisition. So really, at the end of the day, in the end, if you've done all this work, you've prepped, you've done your research, you've leveraged your service providers, and you've put your best foot forward, in your position in the acquiring company, whether you're on the merger side or the acquisition side of the equation, will place you in a position to excel in your IT organization. Make sure you leverage your service providers. Make sure you leverage your vendors to provide you as much information so that you can figure out how to make yourself the most valuable person in the IT organization. And really, at the end of the day, sometimes layoffs are inevitable. But you've done all of these things, and you've done all this research that if you have not proven, for whatever reason, or not that you haven't proven, but that the executives haven't seen that you're valuable to the organization, the reality is you've made yourself much more valuable to many more organizations. And the due diligence that you've done is really going to turn you into a valuable employee for ultimately other opportunities. So hopefully this was helpful. Thank you for participating in this webinar. Again, my name is Sean Mills, and I'm the president of Greenhouse Data. Feel free to leverage our organization in the event that you're going through a rapid change through a merger and acquisition. Whether you end up working with us or not, we can definitely provide you the tools and the valuable insight into how you can do things that ultimately will help you throughout your IT career. So thanks for joining. I really appreciate it, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Sean, and thanks everyone for joining. You will get a link with a recording to this webcast. And again, thank you and have a great rest of your day.